Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dr. Doctor, the show where no topic is too hot or too cold. Whether it's politics, religion, relationships, entertainment, or everyday life, you will be hearing from the experts. This show is not for the faint of heart or the faint of mind. But if you want to be inspired, you have come to the right place. And now, prepare to be enlightened as we introduce the host of Dr. Doctor, Dr. Peter Tassi, and his close advisor, Dr. Fooch.
Welcome to Dr. Doctor. Well, today we're really blessed to have one of our listeners on our show. We received some emails from Irene asking questions about the dating world and relationships. And Irene is a smart young lady who has a lot of great questions about that world and how difficult navigating your way through the dating world. It's not easy. I've talked to a lot of women who are in similar situations where they have a lot of difficulty navigating their way through. The world has certainly changed from when I was their age, and culture has changed, people have changed, attitudes have changed. So Irene, welcome to Dr. Doctor, and thanks for joining us and agreeing to come on.
Thanks for having me.
Certainly better to have you here live than doing emails back and forth. Mm-hmm. So how have you found it? What are some of the questions that you have and concerns you have about the dating world?
Yeah, I was married for a long time, and now I'm sort of in the dating scene, in my late 30s, and so it's just a really interesting experience, and it's so different from when I was dating in my early 20s, and I think so many things have changed. And
now you're in your late 30s.
Yeah.
So we give our listeners a perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. I think there's a few things. I think it's how do we, as women, manage kind of the balance of craving intimacy and monogamy while being sort of bombarded with this hookup culture that isn't conducive to monogamy as much as it was 20 years ago. Because obviously there's a combination of feeling like you're craving intimacy, but you're also craving connection and commitment, but you're dealing with sort of a sea of men who, the majority of them are really only looking for one thing a lot of the times, or they don't know what they want. So I find that that's definitely a challenge, and
I hear that from a lot of women, even women who are older than you, who are single.
Right.
They're battling with this this problem where it is a hookup culture, and guys want one thing, sometimes the women the same, but that's rare. The women want relationships and commitment. Right. And
and I think too, I think that women have sort of succumb to the culture, because it's not because they're making that as a conscious choice. It's more that they're and I think that there's many reasons for that, but they're sort of just becoming what the culture is asking of them. I don't believe that women deep down, want the hookup culture the way that it's presenting itself.
Right.
And so it's definitely a challenge, because I think those women are sort of making it harder for the women who do crave monogamy, because now men can get sex so easily. And so quickly with online dating and social media and that kind of thing, so now it's sort of feeding itself, and it's not really allowing for healthy relationships.
Right. Well, you know, Mother Teresa said something interesting. She says that the Western culture suffers from loneliness.
Right.
And we all know how how difficult
Right.
loneliness is. It's very, very difficult to live a life of loneliness. And to some extent, I think that's part of our nature, that humans want community. And this is why people, one of the reasons why people are so attached to religion. It's not just belief in a specific God or set of dogmas or doctrines. Religion provides community,
Right.
some form of connection with other people.
Right.
And then on a more personal level, we all crave to be intimate with someone,
Right.
not just sexually and physically, but intimate in terms of our personal relationships
Right.
with them, and feel like we're part of
Exactly.
other people.
Yeah.
So I could see how it's a very, very difficult position to be in. I mean, I think that a lot of women, unfortunately, will sacrifice their own integrity
Right.
and their dignity for the sake of just being with a guy.
Right, for
you know?
sure, yeah.
And so they have the intimacy. They
Yeah.
go
Well, and I
along
think
with
that
the
there's
game.
and I think it's that, but it's also because women do, well, not all women, but a lot of women do have a strong sex drive as well.
Yes.
So there's
yes.
that accompanied with the other.
Right.
And then it's hard to, so you're sacrificing, the aspects of yourself. It's like, I want commitment and monogamy and a relationship that is meaningful, that you can, so if you're not finding that, plus you have the sex drive.
Right. I think that a lot of men, so for women there's those things, and so they are willing to jump into this culture of connecting, not really realizing what they're sacrificing in terms of their own sense of
Right.
happiness and
Exactly.
integrity. From the man's perspective, I think that a lot of men have lost their way. When we were young, when I was young, like you or younger, we had this idea that you get married, you hook up with the person you're in love with, you get married, and you live that. Not to say that men back then had all their marbles in terms of being faithful and everything. There were men that would do that. We all did that, where we got married young and had family. But some would look, again, in search of something in
Right.
that world of hooking up with other women and having relationships and affairs. And it's just, they have no idea that not only are they sacrificing their own integrity and dignity, but these men are lost, and they've lost their way, and they damage a lot of lives.
Right,
And I
exactly.
think that today, like you say, this is what men want, but men are lost. They don't realize what they're missing when they have a truly intimate, monogamous, loving relationship, and they sacrifice all the beauty and treasure that goes with that for the sake of having many empty relationships. It's a mystery. I don't know why that is, but I will say that I think that men lose out.
Right.
And then consequently women lose out.
Right.
Because you can't find that kind
Exactly.
of relationship.
Yeah.
Which is, but so I've met women that have kind of given up. I've had women tell me that around your age that say, I don't go to the bars no more, I can't take it. I won't hook up on the internet because this is what I'm dealing with.
Right.
Where do I meet a good guy?
Right.
So it's a big problem. I mean, my only message to men would be, you better get with the program, because you don't really know what you're missing.
Right.
And your life is one, when you live that kind of life, is one of absolute chaos
Right.
and meaninglessness.
Right.
And to women, I would say that don't sacrifice your integrity for anything. And always choose loneliness over sacrificing yourself.
Right.
And then even with loneliness, I I think that we are all in pursuit of finding ourselves and finding meaning in life, not solely in a relationship.
Right.
That's a big mistake.
Yes.
You look around the world, you see millions and millions of priests and nuns who've chosen celibate lives, missionaries that aren't priests and nuns. And we could look at people like the Dalai Lama or Mother Teresa or all these people, but there's literally millions of them that live rich, fulfilling, loving lives. Now, at the same time, there is no question from what I've read and spoken to these people, they do miss that element of an intimate, loving relationship. But they've learned to take their sexual energy
Right.
and channel it in other ways in their life.
Right.
And usually in very productive, good ways,
Right.
if they're of healthy mind and healthy spiritually, to do great things in the world. But that's that's overcoming a mountain.
Right.
You know?
Well, and I find to use points of reference anytime I have been in a relationship that was monogamous but wasn't the right one. I mean, ultimately, it wasn't really fulfilling anyway. So oftentimes I'll look back at that and then, you're almost having to just check yourself all the time and bring yourself back to that idea of, finding other things in your life to fulfill and that need for community or for connection. And you can get that from friendships, and there's many different ways that you can get that. But there is always that sort of drive. It's there. And I think that the biggest thing is so I don't think that the question can be, how do I, stop that drive, or how do I, because I think that it's in and of itself something that can't be replaced. The need for that intimate relationship. But it's how do I manage myself in a way that's healthiest for me with that drive to have that. And I think that if you can attain that, you'll be a lot happier and more fulfilled. And ultimately maybe find the right one through those actions. So that's been and maybe it's about maybe that's a self-managing or mastering the self in a way, recognizing that, okay, even though I'm craving that, if I succumb to it, it's not going to ultimately fulfill what I'm looking for anyway.
Right.
But there's that temptation.
Yes, there's that temptation all the time, that temptation.
Yeah,
you can't deny what is natural to the human being.
Right.
And you can't reject it, you can't deny it, but you learn to live with it. It's like suffering. We can't escape it, we can't deny it, but we learn to live with it. And that's the challenge in life. Some people have all kinds of issues that they're born with, that they can't avoid, they can't run from, they can't find counsel or comfort in something else, but they learn to turn it into something great. And it's a tough world for you women, and I think for men, mostly because they've lost their way.
Right.
But finding happiness and finding contentment is the challenge of a lifetime.
Right.
It's a pilgrimage that you go on all through your life to find that. If it was easy, everybody would find it, everybody'd be happy. But one of the things that baffles me is that when you look at modern day, how many people get divorced that think they have found that love.
Right.
And it's loving and they're together, but they end up divorcing. What are we talking, 50%?
I think it's higher than that.
Maybe higher. And how many of the people who don't get divorced are happy?
Right.
Now, is that because all these people married the wrong person? Or is that have a lot to do with people having the wrong attitude?
Right.
When you get married, obviously, like any of them, you get a job, you get you inherit $10 million, you get all these wonderful things that can happen in life. It's not all blessings.
Right.
It comes with challenges,
Right.
and but the whole idea of people doing their duty seems to be lost. The idea of some moral compass seems to be lost. So,
Well, I feel like men, I think men are generally looking for one thing at this point. Not all men, the majority of men, and it's not an age thing. It could be, from the age of 30 to 50.
yes.
And I feel like, so for someone like myself who was brought up in a very traditional conservative home, with men, as influences that are the opposite of that, it's hard to navigate them. It's hard to know how to, and I think as you go through it, you're experiencing it, and you start to make better decisions, but at first it's quite challenging.
Yeah, it's very challenging, yeah. I see a lot of women, like I said when we started talking, I see a lot of women struggling with this. And sometimes I hear it from men, oh, you can't find a good woman. They all want my money. They want this. They want me to take care of it. The whole traditional things that men say that about women. But sometimes I wonder with the guys, and I'm not taking the side of women, but I wonder with guys, are you using these as an excuse?
Right. Exactly.
Not to enter a committed relationship.
Right.
I understand how a lot of people who were married before and maybe view it that they were burnt, they want to avoid any committed relationships. But where people lose sight there, and I see this with guys and girls, is that, hey, when a marriage doesn't work, you've both been burnt.
Right.
Everybody's been burnt.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not a one-sided story. So, you were hurt, she was hurt, it's devastating, and so on and so forth. There's suffering involved for everybody. But people like to play the victim.
Right.
Oh, woe me, look what happened to me. My husband left me, or my wife left me, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not getting involved in loving again or commitment.
Right.
So I don't know. There's so many things at play that I don't know what the reasons are for this new attitude, especially with men, in terms of this hookup culture. But I do feel great conviction that it's leading them nowhere.
Right.
Yeah. I think that true happiness for men can be found in strong, committed relationships if they choose to get married.
Right.
Not in these fool-around relationships, one after another, trying to remember the woman's name, and meanwhile you're sleeping with them.
Right, exactly.
That goes nowhere, but they don't see it.
Right. I think there's no, we weren't really, for women at least, it's not like we went to school and we were given the tools and developed cognitively in order to navigate the way men are conducting themselves. And because women, we're a little bit more emotional, our sex hormones are different, we manage ourselves differently than men. So we oftentimes, I think, can sort of come in with this desire to be desired, and men, will say certain things or treat us a certain way, and we believe in what they're presenting.
Yeah, you believe it. Yeah.
Of course, because
yes, of course.
Yeah. So then you get yourself into a situation where you're always, not always, but oftentimes I think women are let down.
Yeah.
And it's this kind of thing. But you said those things.
Well, when we're desperate with anything in life,
right?
You could transfer that to being desperate economically.
Right.
You have more of a tendency to believe what people are
Exactly,
telling you. I got
right.
the investment
Such
of a
a-
lifetime for
yeah.
you. You're going to triple your money in 2 months.
Right.
You know deep down it's a lie,
Right.
but you're so desperate that you'll believe it. Same
Right.
with relationships. We'll believe
Exactly.
anything
Right.
that somebody tells us if we're desperately
Right.
lonely. So getting back to what I was originally talking about, the challenge for women is to overcome the loneliness.
Right.
Independent of a relationship,
Right.
independent of men,
Right.
independent of anything. Yes, I may suffer being alone,
Right.
but I will not suffer loneliness. I will find great treasures in life.
Right.
I will live a very rich life.
Right.
I don't need to be
Right.
with someone
Right.
to live a full, rich
Right.
life. Or buy into the deceptions, buy
Right.
into the fakeness of it all.
Right.
Get into a relationship you think is committed, isn't,
Right.
and go through that suffering.
Right.
It's one or the other.
Right.
But you had some other questions in your emails about
Well, I mean, I
relationships.
think, yeah, and I think that women, you meet certain men and there's elements of them that seem, there's traces of good in all of us. And I think a lot of times men and their intentions are to be good, but they're not able to fulfill the fantasy in their mind of what they want the relationship to be. And so it's sort of like, how do you know,
What's real and what's
well,
not
what's
real.
real and what's not real, and is it possible for a man to change, and how do you, like navigating those aspects?
I think that's a good question, because I think this is where a lot of men and women, in my personal view, make a big mistake. Mm-hmm. Is it possible to change? The answer generally, from my perspective, is no. Mm-hmm. Yeah, what you see is what you get.
Right.
And what you get is what will always be there.
Right.
Now, you can change habits. A guy says, you meet someone, you fall in love, and they say, you know what, I'm totally in love with you, this, that, but I can't put up with your smoking.
Right.
Okay. You could change that habit. Now, I guess it depends, because I've met people who were drinkers, and their partner has said to them, look, I love you, everything's perfect, but I can't put up with this constant drinking.
Right.
Sometimes people can get rid of that habit, but generally speaking, I would say no.
Right.
No. But now, when it comes to the character, and we're talking here about men, but it's the same with women, when it comes to our fundamental character, can we change? I hate to say this, and I hope I'm wrong. I don't think I'm cynical or negative, but generally speaking, I believe people do not change.
Right.
They may hide something for a while. It's like, I've heard stories where literally after the ring slipped on the finger, the next day the guy was completely different.
Right.
Or the woman.
Right.
I've heard it with a couple stories with guys. Literally the next day,
Right.
the guy changed
Right.
in terms of becoming abusive
Exactly.
or even physical. You
Yeah.
never laid a hand on her, and all of a sudden, it's amazing, but that's who they truly were.
Right.
And people can hide it, they can
Right.
camouflage it, they can say they changed, they can say
Right.
they're going to try and change, they say they change for you,
Right.
I'm in love with you, I'll change. No.
Right.
Who we are in terms of our character,
Right.
I don't believe is changeable.
Right.
You have to find someone where that character that already exists gels with you. Mm-hmm. So if a guy tends to be rough and gruff, or a woman tends to be naggy and thing, you don't mind that. In fact, you let it gels. There's
Right.
chemistry there.
Right.
But don't think you're going to change.
Right.
Big mistake
Right.
people make.
Well, and I think, like you said before, anytime you're in a state of desperation,
Yeah.
it's almost like I think as women, like, are creating these fantasies in our mind.
Yes, it is a fantasy. Yes.
Based on, these slivers of positive aspects of a relationship or men. And I think that for me, like because I could be in a relationship right now if I wanted to be.
Absolutely.
But I'm not, because I'm not settling.
Right.
And so I have to I'm challenged with the feelings associated with that.
Yes.
And it's sort of an ongoing challenge.
Yes. See, a lot of people too say, and I've heard women say this, and I've heard guys say it, man, I'm not in a relationship. I want to be in a relationship. What's wrong with me? What is it about me? No. There is nothing wrong with you. You weren't willing to settle. Mm-hmm. It's amazing, going back to what you were just saying, it's amazing how many people will settle for the sake of a relationship.
Right.
Even though they know the relationship is no good.
Right.
But once again, it satisfies that desperate loneliness.
Right.
And if you're desperate, you will settle.
Right.
If you're desperate, you will convince yourself it's right when it's not right. When you are desperate, you will go to any length in your mind and in your heart to justify the situation. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, it's not right. Right. And there's no happiness.
And I think that women are, intuition tells us, and sometimes it takes me a little bit longer to listen to it.
Yes.
Sometimes it's shorter.
Yes.
But I also believe for women, like, it's, because I think that we have been, it's sort of in our DNA to feel a sense of stability and security within ourselves when we're the object of one person's attention.
Yeah.
By a man, Yeah. So that's why we crave that relationship with the man as well. So even if the man isn't right for you, it's still a man who is, where you are the object of their attention.
Right, exactly. And that satisfies that need.
Right.
And some people will go through life like that. They'll say, you know what, I never really met the right person. There wasn't really the chemistry with all these people I met. But this one is the nicest one, or whatever.
Right.
And I will settle for this one because I can't stand being alone.
Yeah. And not even just can't stand being alone, like again, going back to like the dating culture being so sexually aggressive.
Yes.
It's like if what ends up happening is you meet a man who, isn't objectifying you, isn't coming in with the intention of using you, and they seem way greater than they should, because the contrast of the other is so great. And so then you're presented with that decision too.
Yes.
And so
it's a difficult thing to work yourself through.
For sure. And I think for me,
difficult.
like, I'm on a quest to sort of conquer all of these things within myself, and
good for you.
And I do feel like prayer and meditation and those kinds of things help, but managing yourself with that drive is quite challenging.
Very difficult.
And
but you got to find some comfort in knowing that tens of millions do it all over the world. And find happiness. Right. In the celibacy, or in the lack of, a lot of them, like I said, priests and nuns and other people like that, they do live in community, which helps.
Right.
A lot of women and men that aren't married and aren't part of some kind of order or religious affiliation, they're living on their own in an apartment.
Right.
That makes it harder.
Sure.
Because we all need community.
Right.
We all need to feel like we're a part of something that involves other human beings, burning desire in us.
Right.
Are there other things that I'm interested in hearing that are challenges for women today, and men or women? Not that I got the answers. I certainly don't have those. I'll guarantee you that. But
I think another big thing is, as a result of the hookup culture being what it is, and experiencing all of these challenges, I think that another thing that would be useful for women is like how to interpret rejection. Because the dating world is so it's quite fickle.
Yes.
So and you're dealing with online dating. It's so easy to meet someone new. So there's no real value placed in any engagement of sorts. So people are kind of picking people up and throwing them away quite easily.
Wow.
And interpreting it, and I think that there's this sort of gut reaction to it being one of like insult.
Yes.
And rejection,
Yes.
and it being a reflection of who you are,
Yes.
or your value, and I think that that's really dangerous because it's not really conducive to that. It's conducive to the platform of the dating scene and what that's about, meaning that it's so easy to find someone else. So it's become this thing where it's men and women, where you're sort of picking people up and throwing them away and casting them aside based on...
There's somebody else around.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so easy to pick up. I mean, all you have to do is swipe.
Yes.
It's
all meaningless to me.
Well, this is...
But I want to say with the word rejection, I love that word rejection. I'm glad you brought that up. I absolutely love it. And there's different reasons why I do, but we're all based on my own personal experiences in life. Rejection, I love it because I believe it's a word I've dwelt on a lot. And I think that people should try to see rejection in a different light. I think that if you can embrace and love rejection, you'll do a lot better. And so he says, how is that possible?
Right.
On one level, you look at the story of, on a totally different level, I should say, you look at the story of Walt Disney. He took his idea of this, Disney and that kind of production company, and he took it to 10 people. 9 out of the 10 told him he was crazy, rejected it. He loved it. And he said, I know I've got a hit. Because 9 out of 10 rejected it.
Right.
You look at the story of Colonel Sanders, went to literally thousands of restaurants. And he was, in his mid-60s or something? I don't know the full story. But he just embraced rejection. He knew, because everybody was rejecting it, he had a hit. So I think rejection is the kind of thing that if you can love rejection, it could catapult you to keep going. It could be a motivator. It can pump adrenaline into your system. It could be the kind of thing that says, you know what, I'm very special. Because I've got something that very few people can recognize is great. And so... But the problem is because of low self-esteem, based on our upbringing, because of low self-esteem, rejection has become this dirty, terrible word that everybody will go to any lengths to avoid. Look at the number of people. I'm amazed at the number of people, what they will do to avoid being rejected. In relationships, there's women who cooperate with their husbands to commit crimes so that they don't reject them. You know what I mean? Like, do anything. I'll do anything that you love me. I'll do anything that you keep accepting me. I'll put up with anything. I'll even change my behavior and do criminal things. Just don't reject me. And I think the other problem with rejection is if you don't love rejection and you can't embrace it, you won't accomplish much in life, because no matter who it is, every person that has accomplished great things or small things has not feared rejection. They haven't gone, I wrote this book and I submitted it to 2 publishers and they turned it down and I don't want to be turned down anymore, so I'm, you know what I mean? This kind of attitude. So, same in relationships. Women get rejected, men get rejected. You say, beautiful. I'm not meant for them, or they're not meant for me.
Right.
That's their choice. I don't have control over what other people think.
Right.
And their choices are legitimate.
Right.
They have their own chemistry. You may
Right.
fall in love with someone, and they don't love you. And so you view that as a rejection. Well, beautiful. I want them to be happy.
Right.
If they're not in love with me, the chemistry's not
course.
there. I move on.
Yeah.
But if you're devastated by that rejection, you're going to sit around for the next 5 years
Right.
talking about this guy that
Right.
didn't love you, but you loved him.
Right.
But it doesn't work that way in
Right.
life. And and
Well,
I've
and I
seen
think
it.
that's
I
an
think we've all
interesting-
seen it with people. I've met guys 25 years later, they're still talking about their exes and how they were rejected. Like, are you for real? No, you weren't rejected. That person, for whatever reason, chose to do this or that. It's no reflection on you. It's not. But if you have a poor self-image, you don't really deep down think highly of yourself.
Right.
Rejection will cripple you.
Right.
It will destroy you. Yeah.
Well, and I think too, people who say that they're in love, but then when the rejection takes place and they become sort of obsessed with the idea of the rejection, it wasn't really love in the first place.
Right.
Because love
Right.
is free and
Yes.
and you would want what is best for that person anyway, versus this need
Well,
to control how they feel about you.
Yes, I think of a student that I counseled and I've seen this with many kids over the years I counseled. He came to me and he says, "Sir, do you believe it?" He says, my mother and us kids have been putting up with my father's drinking for 20 years. Finally, my mother said to my father, "That's it, we've had it. You choose the bottle of whiskey or you choose us." He chose the whiskey and left. So the boy said to me, "Can you believe that my father chose a bottle of whiskey over me?" And I said to the boy, "No, the father didn't choose a bottle of whiskey over you." See, he viewed it as rejection.
Right.
He viewed it as abandonment.
Right.
No, your father has a problem.
Right. Well, it's sort of like with men who, are, let's say, not sex addiction necessarily, but they're part of the hookup culture and they want to have sex with a lot of different women.
Yes.
That's their motivation. So when a woman gets rejected by someone like that, they're not recognizing
Right.
that it has nothing to do with them. It has to do with their intentions are, which is they don't want monogamy.
Exactly.
They want to screw around with a bunch of different people.
Exactly.
So why you're interpreting it as them not wanting you is very it can be dangerous. I think
Can be
this
dangerous. And I've had women come to me and say, these are even women my age, say, "You believe that my husband," and I've had men come to me, "You believe my wife left me and ended up with a guy he doesn't work." The guy's worked all his life,
Exactly.
a hard worker, provided a good life. Doesn't work. He doesn't this. He's a bum. He's a this. He's a that, or like vice versa. And she chose him over me, and that's not really the way to look at it.
right, exactly.
He didn't reject. She or he didn't reject you for that other person.
Right.
What goes on in their head is a whole different chemistry.
Well, I think that a woman will, naturally feel like, if he valued me, if
That's a mistake you're making.
if I was valuable.
No, that's a mistake the woman makes. Exactly, that's what I'm getting at.
Right.
People think, oh, if I was valuable, or if he valued me, or I'm better than the person they chose, or
right.
I'm
Doesn't make
this and I'm
sense.
that.
Yeah.
You may be all those things,
Right.
but that's not what matches what goes on
Right.
in his head
Right.
or her head.
Right.
There's a chemistry there that
Right.
you can't explain.
Do you think that with rejection, it's something that it can be sort of like cognitive therapy, where over time you can train yourself to see it the way that for what it really is, through experiences?
Absolutely. If you are willing to embark on that pilgrimage and
Right.
do the suffering
Right.
and do the thing, you can see rejection for what it truly
Right.
is, that it's not rejection. You can see, and it's like anything in life. If you're willing to pay the price and do the suffering and do the sacrifice and do the soul searching, you will see things a lot differently.
Right.
Whether it comes to relationships, this whole thing about rejection, whether it comes to suffering, whether it comes to happiness, if you're willing to pay the price. But most people don't want to pay the price.
So I think that it's about hope then. So if you pay the price, so you're willing to do all those things to get to where do you end up?
To a better understanding of what is true. Not that this guy dumped me, so he rejected me, so I don't measure up.
Right.
No, that's untrue. That's a false perception
Right.
of the true perception. What is the true perception? Well, you don't know what goes on in his head.
Right.
But the more closer to truth is, it just, in his head, it didn't work out. It
Right.
wasn't right. You could be better than the person he chose. You could be better looking, better
Right.
person, more thing. That is not the point.
Right.
And this is, I think, I want to end on this, and I want to have you back, Irene, because you're such a great guest, and we're going to talk more about these issues. I think that what women have to realize, and men, is that when you are desperate, desperation created out of a false way of looking at the universe, you are not as appealing to another person.
Right.
When you begin to see things for what they truly are,
Right.
when you are enlightened,
Yes.
you are more appealing.
Right.
But not that you want men to be drawn to you because you're this Dalai Lama.
Right.
You want them to be drawn to you because of the way you are.
Right.
But I'm just saying that when we're desperate, we send out an aura. We send
Yes,
out vibes.
it's so true.
And people pick it up. You don't have to say anything. You
Right.
don't have to do anything. They
Right.
just sense it. And but you don't want to be more appealing to the opposite sex for that reason. You want to become enlightened. You want to be happy with yourself. You don't want to spend your life in a relationship you're not happy
No,
in anyway.
absolutely.
And you don't want to spend your life chasing something that's all an illusion.
Right. Right.
You just want to be content where you are, with who you are, and walk this pilgrimage in life to discover truth.
Exactly.
Discover what is true.
Right.
One of the key elements to true happiness, that which is true. Irene, thanks for joining us
Yeah,
today
thanks for
on
having me.
Doctor. And we're going to have you back.
Great.
And I want to hear more about this world of men and women and dating and relationships. It's a
Absolutely.
challenge.
Yes.
It's a challenge. And thank you to all of you for joining us today. If you'd like to write to us with a topic you think is important or like to be a guest on our show, write to us at drdrpodcast@yahoo.com and give us your suggestions or your requests. And if you'd like a digital copy of the book, History of Time from the Big Bang to the Present, write us at drdrpodcast@yahoo.com. Thank you very much and have a great day.